Okay, a parallelogram is a quadrilateral. It's not a quadrilateral triangle. There's no such thing as a quadrilateral triangle.
Triangle.
Evan makes his own map.
I guess so. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral, is a parallelogram if the opposite sides are, it's going to blow your mind,
Congruent.
parallel.
I'll do a good start already.
I know it's pretty crazy that a parallelogram has parallel sides, but that's the fact of it. So if we're looking at that quadrilateral down below, to make that a parallelogram, we'd have to say something like HE has to be parallel to GF, and HG has to be parallel to EF. So when you're showing that something's a quadrilateral, just show all these parallel lines, right? Show all these parallel lines. When we're doing it, we're going to use a symbol that looks like a parallelogram. That's going to stand for parallelogram HGFE. So the symbol parallelogram is the symbol for parallelogram. Yeah, I know.
What?
I don't know. This might.
The symbol for parallelogram
Is a parallelogram.
Why did it?
Oh.
It's kind of like the symbol for a triangle is a triangle. We draw a triangle. I know, I'm blowing minds. I know I'm blowing minds.
No,
It's
I thought you were
okay.
saying the symbol is the symbol.
The symbol is the symbol.
I know, but that just sounds confusing.
The symbol for parallelogram is a parallelogram.
Oh, what? It's like a triangle, it's the same thing.
Yeah, same
No,
thing.
I know, but it was,
Okay,
How bad is this?
now don't forget about quadrilaterals, and in fact any polygon. Order matters. Order matters on how we list it. So this one is HGFE. You also could label it GFEH. You could label it as EFGH. The only thing you can't do is pick letters out of order. So you can't go HFGE. Order still matters on labeling these. So make sure you label them in clockwise or counterclockwise. Doesn't matter where you start. Just make sure you label it clockwise or counterclockwise. All right, I will get you your theorem sheets tomorrow. I printed out the wrong ones today, and I didn't have time to get the colored paper and redo them. But you'll have theorem sheets tomorrow, possibly. But theorem 5.1 is just opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. Yeah.
Will we be able to bring our theorem sheets to the exam?
Yes. Yeah. So theorem 5.1 says opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. So that's just saying that HE would need to be congruent to GF. So maybe I'll write that HE is congruent to GF. And we also know that HG is congruent to EF. And that's all theorem 5.1 says. Opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. You can either remember theorem 5.1 or you can just say opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent, which doesn't take that long to say because you just got to put OPP, opposite sides, parallelogram, congruent symbol. So there's a lot of symbols. All right, theorem 5.2, opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. So if I'm looking at E, I automatically know if it's a parallelogram that G is congruent to it. So that would be angle E is congruent to angle G. But we also know H, so I have to do 2 tick marks because we don't know if they're all equal. But H will be congruent to F. Do you think there's ever a case with a parallelogram that all 4 of your angles are congruent?
yes.
No.
I don't know. Yeah. Right?
This
Is it like a square is a parallelogram?
A square is a parallelogram.
Oh, okay.
Picture a square. Are opposite sides of a square parallel?
Yes.
Yeah. What about a rectangle?
No.
Yes.
Wait.
But a rectangle's not all the sides are rectangles.
I said angles. I didn't say all four sides.
Angle.
Great. So these two are parallel and these two are parallel to these two.
Wait, sorry.
I lost you there.
Okay. So a rectangle. Stop. Is every angle of a rectangle congruent?
Yes.
Are the sides parallel? The ones across from each other? Yes. So a rectangle is a. I never said the sides were all congruent. The angles are.
The opposite side.
Opposite sides are congruent. Yep. So a rectangle and a square are both parallelograms. They're just special parallelograms that all four of your angles are congruent. But they are parallelograms. But this doesn't necessarily apply, but this applies to all parallelograms, not just squares and rectangles. All right, theorem 5.3. Diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. So that's going to say something like, if I have QM, that's congruent to MS. Maybe I'll write that down off to the side. So that tells me that QM is congruent to MS. And we're also going to know that TM is congruent to MR. Here's another question for you. Is there ever a time where all four of those parts are the exact same? Where QM would be congruent to MR is congruent to MS is congruent to TM. Yes. In a square. What about a rectangle?
No.
No.
Hang on.
Yes.
Yes.
Think about it.
Yeah, no.
It's not the outside side.
So if I picture, everyone just stop for a second. Picture a rectangle in your head. Are the diagonals both the same size? So if they both bisect each other,
Mind blown.
all four of those segments would be congruent. So not only in a square, but also a rectangle, are all four of these segments congruent. And it's because both diagonals are the same size. So if they bisect each other, then all the little segments also have to be congruent as well. So like
Square and a rectangle or just a square?
square and a rectangle.
It's freaky.
It's a Freaky Friday, but it's Monday. All right, quick summary. Parallelograms have how many sides?
4.
4. Nice job. You guys are crushing it. Opposite sides are blank and blank. Yeah. Parallel and congruent. Perfect. Parallel. I know it's got 2 L's because it makes it parallel. And congruent. All right. Opposite angles are parallel? No, that doesn't make any sense. Lydia? Congruent. Yep. Opposite angles are congruent. Consecutive angles are, we didn't really cover this. But consecutive angles are going to be, supplementary. Perfect. Why aren't you writing? You're quitting on me. And finally, we have their diagonals blank each other. They don't hurt each other. They bisect each other. Perfect. They bisect each other. That's all the big stuff you need to know about parallelograms. And in fact, all those points are what we're going to use to kind of do proofs later on. Yes.
I feel stupid.
Cool.
Wow.
Was that your question? More of a
When
statement.
you say consecutive, I think.
Consecutive means, yeah. No, that's fine. I'm saying F and G.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about E and F. I'm talking about H and E. Anytime you're naming them clockwise or counterclockwise, they'd be in order. No, that's a great question. That's a great question. So consecutive. So we either have across or consecutive with these guys. Across, they're congruent. The one right next to it is going to be supplementary to it, so it adds up to 180. Cool. All right, example number 1. It says measure of angle QPS is 70 degrees. So QPS is 70 degrees. Maybe I'll write that in there. I'll write that from here to here is 70 degrees. It says find SR, ST, measure of PQR, and measure of Q. Oh, how many questions can they put on one thing? Let's just start with SR. Let's start with the segment SR. So SR is going to equal, what do you? It's going to equal PQ, and PQ equals PQ equals, so that means SR equals 5 as well. All right, ST, segment ST. I got ST right now. Who can tell me what that measure is? Evan.
Well, it's congruent to PQ, which is 3.
Perfect. That's all I need. All right, now we're looking for the measure of angle PQR. Does anyone know what the measure of PQR is? Whew. Robin?
110.
No? Is it? How do you know that?
Because it equals 180.
Oh, it equals 1. Because I was like, I know what QRS is because that's 70. Okay, so it must be supplementary. PQR is supplementary, so that gives me 110 degrees. Then I have the measure of QRS. Who's got the measure of QRS? Yes, 70 degrees. Perfect. Perfect. All right, questions on any of those values? Okay, then let's go ahead and look at that next one. The next one says PQRS is a parallelogram. It's probably important to say it's a parallelogram, right? Otherwise, it's just a quadrilateral. We don't know anything about it. So it says find X and find Y. What do we know about the two angles? I know PQR and QRS. What would those two, when you add them together? They're supplementary, so they add to 180. So you just have to do 2y. Maybe I'll actually put that down. That angle Q plus angle R equals 180. Q is 2y plus R is 3y plus 30 equals 180. Working my way down, I would subtract 30 degrees from both sides. So I would have 5y equals 150. And I'm going to come up with y equals 30 degrees. Did we all get 30 degrees, or am I way off and I don't know what I'm doing? Does that look mostly good? Okay, cool. Could I check it somehow?
No.
No? Okay, then never mind. Jacob.
For example, I'm late to this. For example, we're assuming that it's a parallelogram, right?
Yep.
Okay.
No, we're not just assuming. It's told us that.
I mean, example 1.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
I was assuming because all the
Yep.
other than.
Yep. But this one, 30 degrees, we could just plug it in for the y's and we can check our answer.
It's a Monday.
Yeah.
When you said you can't check, you said no. Okay, I was just confused.
No, he said no, and I'm like, yep, no, there's no way. But there is a way. You just take 30 degrees, plug in for the y's, and make sure they're supplementary. Yes? Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry I cut you. All right, who got X? Who has the answer for X? Sabrina. Oh, did you get the answer?
Yeah, but to solve it, you do x plus 7 equals 3x minus 3.
X plus 7 equals 3x minus 3, and you do some math.
Yeah.
And what does it come out to?
I got x equals 5 degrees.
X equals 5, not degrees, because we're talking to length.
So
I do the same thing. As soon as they're talking about degrees here, sometimes I'll put the degree symbol on here, but it's not degrees because it is a length. Let's just double check to make sure it's right. 5 plus 7 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15, minus 3 is 12. We're good. Golden. Nailed it. All right, if you haven't already Go ahead and get these values. I will put the solutions up, so you're in charge of double checking to make sure you are right. I got JK equals 3. JK. I got 7 degrees for G. JH is 5. And measure of angle F is 110 degrees. No JKing there. Just check to make sure you get those answers. If you get something different, please raise your hand, and I can help you through it. Otherwise, go ahead and start the homework. As I said, I'm not going to check the homework tomorrow. Tomorrow's a work day, so if we don't get done with this, you probably will get pretty close to getting done with this in class. But tomorrow will be a work day. Bring something productive. I'll probably have some riddles you can work on in class. Yeah.
Wait, we don't have a lesson tomorrow?